Now, continuing from the previous video where we were talking about the UI router, uh, I can now open this in the Plunker. So I click here and open this particular code in the Plunker. And here I have the hello world.js and the index.html. Okay, now what I can do in my hello world.js, I can actually write okay, and then when it's running already, so I just click on the hello and it shows that. Okay, I thought I should show this because in the previous video I was making the change but I did not demonstrate it. Now you can actually go ahead and play with this. It's a very simple one. You just have to lay out like this so that you understand it better. Okay, and continue to experiment with it. So what you can observe from here is there's nothing here in the UI view, but because of the hello state and the about state that is registered with the state provider, we have two names of the states, hello and about. Now if these names are called in the state reference, we have the corresponding templates which are registered with the state loaded, right? So now let's go ahead with this understanding and try to understand our code here. We are back to our code of the gym app that we are creating, and currently we see that we have an ng app starter. You may be wondering where is the controller, because in our Angular examples that we were working on in the previous Angular series and the Angular videos and in the classroom, we always had an Angular controller, the ng controller, and here we don't have the ng controller. We will answer that shortly. However, like the UI view, now we have an IronNav view. That means always it's the index.html, and as we browse through the app, it is actually not browsing, but what is happening is it is changing the states. So there are different states in the app which are registered with the state provider, and as we click on those links, the state changes and a particular template is loaded. That's the theory. Okay, we'll go ahead and check that. Now, like the UI view, like the UI view here, or let me show this one, like the UI view in your index.html, this UI view, we have an ion view here. So all our templates will be loaded here. That means we need to have a template, right? So there are a lot of questions that we need to answer now. So we go to the app.js. Now, why are we going to the app.js? Because here is my app.js is included, right? It is inside my JS folder, and it's inside the controller is inside the JS controller. And the rest of the things that you see is like it is loading the Ionic bundle, it is loading the style sheet, it is loading Ionic CSS, right? And there are regular HTML stuff out there. Now let's go to app.js, and here on the top on line number 7, you will see that this is similar to what we have been doing in AngularJS, right? We call the angular.module and give it a name. Now this is the app name, and that's the whole reason you have the same name here. So we can change this name. We can change the app name to gym app, right? And similarly, in my app.js, I can change this to gym app. So you don't have to continue with that name. What you can notice now is you have an Ionic as a module. In our Angular examples, we hardly came across this, right? However, we saw that in my UI router. If you go to the UI router, you will see that in the module. So where is that module? In the hello world.js, you have a UI router as a module being included, right? You see, this is my app angular.module, hello world is the app name, and then there is a dependency on the UI router. Similar to that, we have a dependency on the Ionic module itself. So Ionic comes with its own stuffs. All those things are available to this app. It should be gym app, right? Let me check. What's the name here? Yeah, the gym app. Okay. Now you will also notice there's a starter controller. Now this is strange. We never had a controller in our app. In all the Angular examples, we never had a controller. What we used to have is in our index.html, we'll have an ng controller here, right? Is equal to some controller name, right? See, my gym CTRL, something like that, which we don't have it here. So there's a question. If you have an app, where's the controller? Who manages the data? Where is it managed? So we'll answer that question here. I think we'll hold on to the controller question, but we have noticed that we are adding a controller here. and it is a module. We'll come back to this. Now we have the run and we have a config. Now these are a method chain. Notice that it is not closed here, and we are not writing like var app is assigned something like this, and then you're saying or gapp or something like that, and then gapp. We are not doing this, right? And we are not ending the statement here. We are doing a method chaining, right? So we are closing, we are not having the semicolon that terminates the statement, but we are method chaining. So we have this chain app, and we have on this module we are calling the run function. We need not understand the run function because this is about Ionic, and Ionic is trying to do the basic stuff of making it aware of the device out there. What we can focus on is the configuration. Okay, we can go ahead and look at the configuration, and now you see that in your configuration you have the state provider. Let's look back to our code in the UI router, right? So we'll go to the UI router, and here you see that in my config I had a state provider, right? Why do you have a state provider? If you're thinking of how did you get the state provider, it came in because you now have the UI router. So you have this, a state provider available to you through which you can register the states. So what we are doing in our app is we are taking this state provider and then we are going to make the states. So we have the state provider dot state like this. So we have several states. Let me take you to this code and show you here. Yeah, you have variables like okay, you have state provider dot state and the state name. So instead of putting this variable, what we have done is we have taken this object here and defined it. So we have taken this entire object and placed it here in our Angular code, right? That we have state provider dot state dot state. So to the state provider we are registering the state for app, state for app search. Now this state is your state name. Okay, you have the URL, you have the abstract. There are a few more parameters which is being used here, and you have the template URL. Now in the other case I can show you here is that we just had a template. We were not talking about URL. When we say template, that means you have the HTML code written here. When we say URL, that means you have an option to give the path. So here we are not having the complete code. Here for example you have the menu.html. Where is menu.html? You go to templates folder, inside you will find the menu.html. So we are using a URL, a relative URL. Instead, we could have actually copied this code, entire stuff here, and pasted it inside this place had it been template only. So this is a neater code, right? You keep the URL, you keep the file away and just tell that you need a template here. That also makes it possible for this particular template to be reused in other states if you want to.